Stop me if this sounds familiar. You posted something online, and now you're checking your phone every 5 minutes to see who liked it. You changed your entire personality just to fit in with people you don't even really like. Here's the brutal truth nobody's telling you about why you can't stop chasing validation from others. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I've never done this. We've all been there, waiting for someone to notice us, to approve of us, to tell us we're good enough. But what if I told you that every time you seek approval from someone else, you're actually giving away a piece of yourself? And I'm not talking about some spiritual stuff here. I'm talking about real, measurable damage to your self-worth that happens every single day. So let's break down exactly how this works, and more importantly, how to stop it. Here's what's really going on. You wake up in the morning, and before you even get out of bed, you're already thinking about what other people think of you. Maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your friends, maybe it's random strangers on the internet. Doesn't matter who it is. The point is, your first thoughts aren't about what you want or what makes you happy. They're about how you measure up in someone else's eyes. And this isn't just a small problem. This is literally controlling your entire life without you even realizing it. Think about the last time you made a decision. Any decision. What should I wear today? What should I post on social media? Should I speak up in that meeting? Should I pursue this career or that one? Now be honest with yourself. How much of that decision was based on what you actually wanted versus what you thought other people would approve of? I'm willing to bet it's way more than you would admit. And here's where it gets really messed up. Every time you make a choice based on what others might think, you're sending a message to your brain. That message says, what I want doesn't matter. What I think doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what they think. Do this enough times, and guess what happens? Your brain starts to believe it. Your sense of self-worth becomes completely dependent on external validation. You literally lose the ability to value yourself. Let's talk about where this actually comes from, because understanding the root cause is the first step to fixing it. When you were a kid, seeking approval makes sense. You needed your parents to approve of you because your survival literally depended on them. If they rejected you, you'd be in serious trouble. So your brain developed this system where getting approval meant safety, and getting rejection meant danger. That's normal, that's healthy, that's how kids are supposed to work. But here's the problem. A lot of us never grew out of that phase. We're still walking around as adults with the same approval-seeking mechanisms we had when we were 5 years old. Except now, instead of needing approval for survival, we're just addicted to it. It's become a habit, a compulsion. And like any addiction, it's destroying us from the inside out. Think about social media for a second. You post a picture or a thought or whatever. Then what do? You wait, you check, you refresh, you count the likes, you read the comments. You feel good when people approve. You feel terrible when they don't. And here's the really insidious part. Even when you get approval, it doesn't last. You need more. You need it again and again and again. It's never enough. Why? Because they're trying to fill an internal void with external validation, and that literally cannot work. It's like trying to quench your thirst by looking at a picture of water. Let me give you a real example. Say you're at work and you have an idea. It's a good idea. You know it's a good idea. But instead of just sharing it, you spend the next 20 minutes trying to figure out how to present it so that everyone will like it. You're not thinking about whether the idea is valuable. You're thinking about whether you'll be valued for having the idea. See the difference? In the first case, you're focused on the idea itself. In the second case, you're focused on yourself and how others perceive you. One is productive. The other is just anxiety disguised as work. Let me give you a real example. Say you're at work and you have an idea. It's a good idea. You know it's a good idea. But instead of just sharing it, you spend the next 20 minutes trying to figure out how to present it so that everyone will like it. You're not thinking about whether the idea is valuable. You're thinking about whether you will be valued for having the idea. See the difference? In the first case, you're focused on the idea itself. In the second case, you're focused on yourself and how others perceive you. One is productive. The other is just anxiety disguised as work. And it gets worse, because when you finally do share that idea and people don't react the way you hoped, what happens? You don't think the idea was bad, you think you're bad. You take it personally. Your self-worth takes a hit. And next time, you're even more hesitant to speak up.
You second guess yourself even more. The cycle repeats and gets stronger each time. Now let's talk about relationships, because this is where approval seeking really shows its ugly face. When you base your self-worth on other people's approval, you can't have authentic relationships. You just can't. Because you're not showing up as yourself. You're showing up as whoever you think the other person wants you to be. You're constantly performing, constantly editing yourself, constantly walking on eggshells, trying not to say or do anything that might make them think less of you. And the tragic irony here is that the more you do this, the less people actually connect with you. Because they're not connecting with the real you. They're connecting with this manufactured version of you that you think they want to see. So even when you do get approval, it feels hollow. Because deep down, you know they're not really approving of you. They're approving of your performance. And that just makes you crave even more approval to try to fill that emptiness. I see this all the time with people who are constantly trying to please everyone. They say yes when you want to say no. They go along with things they don't actually want to do. They hide their real opinions and preferences. They laugh at jokes they don't find funny. They pretend to like things they don't actually like. And they do all of this because they're terrified of disapproval. They're terrified that if people see the real them, they won't be accepted. But here's what they don't realize. That fear is actually creating the exact outcome they're trying to avoid. Because when you're constantly seeking approval, people can sense it. They can sense the desperation. They can sense the inauthenticity, and it pushes them away. Not because there's anything wrong with you, but because nobody wants to be around someone who's constantly performing for them. It's exhausting. It feels manipulative, even if that's not your intention. Let's look at this from another angle. When you seek approval, you're essentially giving other people power over you. You're making them the judge of your worth. And here's the thing about that. Most people aren't qualified for that job. They have their own biases, their own insecurities, their own limited perspectives. They don't know your full story. They don't know what you've been through. They don't know what's in your heart. So why would you let them determine your value? And even if they weren't qualified, even if they were the wisest, most perceptive people on earth, it still wouldn't matter. Because your worth isn't something that can be determined by someone else. It's not up for debate. It's not conditional. You have inherent value just by being human. That's it. That's the whole thing. But when you're constantly seeking approval, you're rejecting that truth. You're saying that your value is conditional, that it depends on whether other people recognize it and validate it. This creates a really unstable foundation for your life because other people are unpredictable. Their opinions change. Their moods change. What they approve of today, they might disapprove of tomorrow. So if your self-worth is based on their approval, then your self-worth is constantly fluctuating. You're on an emotional roller coaster that never ends. One day you feel great because someone complimented you. The next day you feel worthless because someone criticized you. You have no solid ground to stand on.
And here's another aspect most people don't think about. When you seek approval, you're not just hurting yourself, you're also hurting the people around you, because approval-seeking behavior is inherently manipulative. You're not being genuine. You're trying to get something from people. You're trying to extract validation from them. And even if you're not doing it consciously, they can feel it on some level. It creates this weird dynamic where nothing feels quite real or authentic. Plus, when you're obsessed with getting approval, you can't give genuine appreciation to others because you're too busy thinking about yourself. You're too busy calculating how to get people to like you. You can't actually connect with them in a real way because you're stuck in your own head worrying about how you're coming across. So everyone loses. You don't get the real connection you actually need, and neither do they. So, here's the turning point, the moment where everything changes, and it's probably not what you expect. The solution isn't to become some cold, aloof person who doesn't care what anyone thinks. That's just another form of seeking approval. You're still defining yourself in relation to others, just in the opposite direction. You're still giving them power over you by trying so hard to not care what they think. The real shift happens when you realize that seeking approval is a choice. It's a habit, and like any habit, you can change it. But you have to be willing to feel uncomfortable for a while, because when you stop seeking approval, you're going to face the thing you've been running from this whole time. The fear that maybe you're not good enough. That fear has been there all along. The approval seeking was just a way to avoid dealing with it. So, instead of running from that fear, you have to face it head on. You have to ask yourself, what if I'm not good enough? What if people don't approve of me? What if they reject me? And then you have to sit with those questions. Really sit with them. Don't try to reassure yourself or rationalize them away. Just feel what it would be like if those things were true. And here's what you'll discover. You'd still be okay. You'd survive. The world wouldn't end. You'd still be you. That realization is everything. Because once you know deep in your bones that you can handle disapproval, it loses its power over you. You're no longer making decisions based on fear. You're free to actually choose what you want, to be who you really are, to express yourself authentically without constantly calculating how others will respond. And paradoxically, when you stop seeking approval, you often end up getting more genuine respect and connection from others. Because people are drawn to authenticity. They're drawn to people who are comfortable in their own skin, who aren't trying to impress anyone, who are just being real. That's actually attractive in a deep way. Not the fake confidence of someone who's pretending they don't care, but the genuine groundedness of someone who has found their work within themselves. Let me bring this all together for you. Seeking approval destroys your self-worth because it makes your value dependent on something external and unstable. Every time you look to others for validation, you're reinforcing the belief that you're not enough on your own. You're training yourself to meet that external input to feel okay about yourself. And that creates a vicious cycle where you need more and more approval to feel worse and worse about yourself. The way out isn't to stop caring what people think entirely. It's to shift where your sense of worth comes from. Instead of deriving it from external approval, you need to root it in something internal, in your own values, in your own integrity, in your commitment to being authentic and true to yourself. When you do that, other people's opinions become just information, sometimes useful, sometimes not, but they don't define you anymore. This doesn't happen overnight. You've probably been seeking to prove for years or even decades. That's a deeply ingrained pattern. But every time you catch yourself about to say or do something just for approval, you'll have a choice. You can pause. You can ask yourself, is this what I actually want? Is this aligned with who I really am? And then you can choose differently. Each time you do that, you're building new neural pathways, you're creating a new habit, you're reclaiming your power. And look, you're gonna mess up. You're gonna fall back into old patterns sometimes. That's normal. That's part of the process. The point isn't to be perfect. The point is to be aware, to notice when you're doing it, to choose differently when you can. Over time, it gets easier. The approval-seeking impulse gets quieter, your inner sense of self-worth gets stronger, and you start living from a place of authenticity instead of fear. The bottom line is this: you are valuable. Not because of what you do, or what you achieve, or who approves of you. Just because you exist. That's not some feel-good nonsense. That's just reality. But you have to believe it. You have to internalize it. And the only way to do that is to stop looking outside yourself for confirmation and start trusting what you know to be true inside. If this changed how you see things, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.